Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte. Later in the show, Springfield Zulmanzi, the creative force behind the animated series The Matumblias, which I'm sure we've butchered all those names, but we're going to get right eventually.
Matumblias.
Which is part of what his animated series is about and is getting a screening at Westfield State on Thursday and will release its second season soon.
Its second season. Is that apostrophe S or it's without an apostrophe?
Well, we'll ask the word nerd.
Later this hour, Emily Brewster from Merriam-Webster gives us the brief history of the apostrophe.
But first, we welcome NEPM's Jill Kaufman from the NEPM newsroom, and we're talking liquor.
This is not a cocktail segment.
We're not drinking liquor.
Oh.
Cocktails are for Fridays.
All right. Yes, we're
You
talking.
never invite me in on Fridays. I just want to point that out. But
You can come with us.
Come whenever.
All right.
We
We're gonna
invite
we're gonna
everybody.
take one
No one
today.
ever
all
comes.
right. I retract.
Nirvani has come.
I know.
That's true.
But we're talking liquor licenses. And at last night's License Commission meeting in Northampton, 2 liquor licenses held by former music venue owner Eric Schur were canceled and taken out of use, even after Schur was given more time late last year. He had not yet obtained a needed certificate from the state to transfer the licenses to the new owners of the Iron Horse and the owner of the restaurant, Gombo. Schur, who was at the meeting, now cannot sell them, and the city cannot issue them.
Joining us to distill this on-brewing story is the NPM News Department's Jill Kaufman. Give us the brief recent history of all of the drama surrounding Eric Schur's licenses.
So what happened last night, what led up to what happened last night was that Eric Schur had been given a continuance from a few months ago to get the paperwork together that would allow him to sell these 2 licenses in particular. But if folks have been following the Northampton music scene and the Northampton entertainment scene, they'll know that the Iron Horse and the Calvin, Pearl Street have been closed either since before COVID or certainly during COVID and then didn't reopen. So Eric Schur owns a lot of property and he owned these licenses and the License Commission, the City License Commission asked him, said, if you don't do something, if you don't get your businesses open because people need to come downtown, the city needs money, we're going to have to cancel them. So he finds buyers, really incredible, exciting moments in the city of Northampton in the last few months. And I know you've been reporting on this as well. A reopening of the Calvin is coming. A reopening of the Iron Horse is coming. Northampton is known for music. It's what brings people into the city. And last night, this one particular certificate from the state of Massachusetts, Eric Schur didn't have it ready. We don't know if that means that the state did not clear him. This is about making sure that there's no liens against him, that his taxes have been paid. We don't know if the paperwork got delayed for whatever reasons. He did say something that the state had given him like a feedback that there'd be like 23 days from the time he filed it. We don't know when that was. All right, so you're looking at me, Monty. What's to happen next is we're still waiting to hear about the Calvin Theater. Eric Schur had paperwork due to the city about the Calvin Theater today. There's a liquor license in the middle of the deal selling the name and the business model, not the building, to the new owners, if you want to talk about them. Or
The Parlor Room doing business as the Iron Horse. Parlor Room is a music venue.
No, but the Calvin,
is going
Okay.
to Bowery Presents, which is a national organization mostly based on the East Coast, I think, but they have locations in Boston, Nashville, across the East Coast, and they're a huge promoter. They do a lot of bigger name shows, so them doing the booking for the Calvin would be a big draw.
Because then essentially the Calvin, which he used to own and operate, would be reopened. The Iron Horse, which he used to own and operate, would be open, and both would have liquor licenses.
Right, and those places reopening would bring in more business. Other restaurants would get the business, assumingly, or maybe somebody would buy pretty
An economic driver, as
Right,
they call
right.
it, yeah.
I don't, I know we have a few other things to talk about, but I just want to say that there's a whole issue here with the state issuing licenses to municipalities, and there are quotas, and you can't just get a license. You can't just get more licenses easily. So should we hold off on that for a moment?
Yeah, let's hold on that for just a little bit. And we should also note for a further backstory that this goes on way before COVID. It's easy to kind of blame it on COVID, but Eric Schur has held on to liquor licenses that he was not using for a long time, including a church that he purchased.
Would move them between businesses.
So as not to lose them.
So as not to lose them. And in the case of the church, which was located just across from the main building at Smith up at the
right near City Hall.
That that moved to be the license for the Green Room when the Green Room opened just down the road from the Iron Horse itself.
Yeah, right there on Center Street. So there are a lot of questions because there were, the licenses were part of the deal of buying the brand name of the Iron Horse. The licenses are contingent upon the Calvin reopening. So earlier this afternoon, we spoke with the chair of Northampton's Licensing Commission, Natasha Yakovlev, to answer more of our questions.
One of the things that happened at the meeting yesterday, as you well know, is that you gave one of 3 really coveted liquor license, all alcoholic beverage liquor licenses, to the new owners of the Iron Horse. That would be the Parlor Room, so that they could get that business open again and bring people to the city, bring people down to that neighborhood in particular, which also has other restaurants on it. I got the impression, as a reporter watching you last night, all of you at the commission, that you were concerned that you now have 2 liquor licenses left, and one of those might have to go to the Calvin if Eric Shore does not come through with paperwork in time. Now, that's speculation on my part. Can you say more about that?
Well, I wouldn't say it's a have to. I would say it's an option that we would want to leave open in the interest of the Bowery coming to Northampton.
Now, from what you understand, Natasha, though, is the Bowery buying the Calvin, or is the Bowery booking the Calvin and needs this liquor license to book the Calvin?
The Bowery would be booking the Calvin and would need this license to book the Calvin.
Right.
They were very clear about that when they first came to us.
That's what I thought so, too. So there's a common misconception out there that there is somebody buying the Calvin from Eric Shore, and that is not the case as far as we know.
But then
I'm not clear on that. I'm not 100% clear on that. But I will say, the same is true for the Iron Horse. They absolutely need a liquor license in order to be viable.
And the Parlor Room did not buy the Iron Horse building. They bought the Iron Horse brand and ostensibly Eric's liquor license.
Yes.
Correct. Eric doesn't own the building that the Iron Horse is in.
Right. And so in similar fashion, when the Bowery books for the Calvin, would the license be under the Bowery or for the building?
If all of that comes to fruition, the license would be with the Bowery.
Okay.
Eric and his real estate, his holdings won't have any ownership of any of the licenses.
So these liquor licenses are not address specific, or are they?
Correct. Well, the ones that we transferred. So last night we had there was the Iron Horse license that was to be transferred to the Parlor Room / Iron Horse. We denied that transfer because of the length of time it's taken Eric to get his certificate from the Department of Revenue that is required for that. So that license with that address on it for that business now no longer exists because we denied the transfer, in essence, making the license essentially non-existent. So we had to cancel the existence of the license, and we opted then to as is our authority, to reissue one of the over-quota licenses to the Parlor Room / Iron Horse folks so that they could get started. The alternative would have been to allow another continuance for a certain period of time for Eric to get the appropriate certification, which just keeps kicking the can down the road when there's this other issue that is completely out of our control, which is how long it takes the ABCC to process applications.
The Alcoholic Beverage Control Commission.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And just historically, Shore has done this before, moving the license that had been issued for the church location and moving that to the Green Room. So it's not as if he hasn't been through this process before for others of his locations. He's just moving, but there are delays for whatever reason.
Right. And this is a little different, I think, because he's moving licenses out of his portfolio of things.
Right.
So I think when moving from the Baptist Church down to the Green Room, I don't know that it elevated to that level of requiring Department of Revenue certification.
Gotcha.
I think that was just a simple transfer of address.
Natasha, Helen Kahn said last night, and I think there was some implication of this coming from yourself and the other commissioner, that because of the delay of Shore's transfer, it's impacted the Iron Horse and it's impacted the restaurant Gumbo, and it impacted other restaurants in the city. And that has to do with the state's quota on municipalities that they can only get so many licenses. So by Eric Shore's not filing his paperwork or getting what he needed from the state of Massachusetts, this Department of Revenue document that says he's in good standing, by his not doing his end for some reason or another, That is a loss of 2 licenses for the city. Could you say more about that and why that's such a slam?
Well, because the mayor's office worked hard to get these over quota licenses. Because we are over our quota, anything that gets canceled, we lose. So the whole point of the over quota license, and it was Mayor David Narkowitz who first got a batch of them back during one of his tenures. The whole point is to infuse business opportunities, right? It's about economic development. So when we get more of these over quota licenses, we want them to serve that purpose. We want them to be encouraging people to open businesses in town. We want people who keep trying to get licenses through a lottery to be able to get them. So it is unfortunate that in order to just sort of rip the Band-Aid off and say enough is enough, we have to move on from this, we are going to lose the 2 licenses that we canceled last night. So that makes our over quota, the number goes down a little bit, but it's frustrating because it wasn't the intent of getting these additional licenses. But to that point, these licenses are still going to be used towards the economic development of downtown Northampton, and the reopening of the Iron Horse is a huge, huge component of that.
You mean the over quota licenses, not the 2 that were canceled, just to be clear.
Right. Yes, exactly. The licenses that we had to cancel. So now these over quotas are still serving that purpose of, an economic driver.
But what you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is Natasha Yakovlev, the chair of the Licensing Commission in Northampton, talking about liquor licenses, the Iron Horse, and what went on in the meeting yesterday. If the city and your commission didn't swoop in and say, we're going to use one of these licenses we were hoping to put into a lottery to give to the Iron Horse, the Iron Horse might not be able to open in a timely manner or in the fashion that they wanted to. You had to use one of the ones in your back pocket. Meanwhile, and this goes up, I'm sure, beyond your realm of knowledge, the nonprofit out of the Iron Horse bought a liquor license from Eric Shore in addition to buying the brand name, the Iron Horse. So the city has now given the Iron Horse a liquor license. Do they have to not pay Eric Shore as much money now?
I don't know. That is outside of the purview of the things that I need to know.
And we have reached out to Chris Freeman, who is the president of the board of that nonprofit, to see what the situation is. But it seems like, in some ways, this could be a gift to the Iron Horse from the city.
Outside of this commission, it begs whether or not that their inability to transfer that license through the agreement that they'd reached with Shore, if this constitutes a breach of contract.
Right.
Just so I have an idea of where the pattern is. So there was a license in pocket that went to the parlor room, not necessarily the Iron Horse specifically, meaning the parlor room is also going to have to transfer in the same way that we were talking about earlier?
No, we issued the license to the parlor room DBA as the Iron Horse.
Gotcha.
On Center Street, not the one on down
Correct.
the street from there.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where there is actually a room called the parlor room.
Yes.
Jill Kaufman from the NEPM News Department.
It seemed last night that the commissioners considered it was possible one of the 2 licenses left for a lottery for restaurants or businesses could be issued to the Calvin. It appeared that way to me. If Eric Shore's paperwork fell through, which caused some deal to fall through that we don't know much about, is that the case? I mean, is that why commissioners last night held off deciding either about the lottery date or for those licenses or assigning? Okay, so you're considering.
Yeah.
It's
the authority of the License Commission to determine what to do with the licenses. So historically, we have done lotteries, but we have the authority to do it however we want to, and it was my preference last night to leave that open because it's a fluid situation. There's information forthcoming. We still don't know exactly what's going on, and we just want to try and be methodical and purposeful about this, and mindful of opportunities.
Does a business, a restaurant like Gombo on Main Street that's open up and is taking a risk now suffer, though, because of the bad behavior of Eric Shore? And this is not a new thing. This is something that's gone on for many years where the Licensing Commission has granted him extensions and a lot of leeway. What's to happen to a business like Gombo from the Licensing Commission's perspective here?
Well, I mean, it's unfortunate, of course. I think that, it's not hyperbole to say that a lot of businesses in Northampton have suffered because of these music venues being shuttered and these licenses sort of being held up for as long as they were. There are other opportunities for restaurants to get some licenses. There's a wine and malt license. There's a cordial license. Gombo has both of those. But again, this kind of all comes back also to the state's archaic laws around how many licenses a municipality is allowed to have. We should be able to choose that for ourselves.
And I believe the governor does have a proposal on the table that many liquor store owners and restaurateurs who've invested a lot of money in these licenses in the past are opposed to. But it is something I think Governor Healy is looking to try to potentially change.
Think that even over the years, just in my time working in the city of Northampton as, previously for the bid and now as a volunteer for the License Commission, there feels like a lot less of that angst with the people who did pay six figures, for example, for their liquor licenses. They were a lot more anxious about this previously, less so now. I think everybody would agree it's an opportunity that's really important for Northampton to just have more licenses, for any municipality for that matter.
Sort of like not getting mad at people about forgiving student loans.
Yeah.
Right.
A similar
Right. It doesn't
thing.
matter to me that I paid my student loans off.
Like, no, it was terrible. If other people don't have to go through this awful,
right.
then maybe that's better for everybody.
It's better for everybody in the end. It's a thing I know for people who did pay big money for them, but at this point in time, I think everyone would agree it's better for everybody in the end.
I have one more question. It's Jill Kaufman. Commissioner, last night there was conversation with Chris Freeman and with the commissioners that everybody was operating in good faith. And Chris Freeman, again, being connected to the Parlor Room, which is the new owner or the buyers of the Iron Horse space of the
We'll call them
business model.
purveyors because they do not own the building.
It's so complicated. I mean, we're sitting here parsing all these words. I'm sorry. So Chris Freeman says to you all, and then this was confirmed by a commissioner, we've all been acting in good faith. And he is referring to Eric Schur at that point. Do you know if Eric Schur was rejected by the state in some way for this Department of Revenue Certificate of Good Standing? Do you know if he actually applied for it? Do you know if he has been rejected by the state? Because that would impact the Calvin, of course.
Of course, yeah. I have no idea. Those are all questions for Eric and his people.
Natasha, who's the chair of the licensing commission, if this doesn't happen today, that Calvin license is canceled?
No, not at all. That is not in play at all. There's paperwork that is happening that is due today. So it doesn't mean that the license is canceled.
Okay.
It would take an act of the License Commission coming together, having a public hearing to vote on whether or not to do that.
Is that a special meeting or is that February's meeting?
Not likely. It would probably happen at February's meeting. I expect we will have a special meeting before our typically scheduled February meeting in order to get the folks at the Iron Horse / Parlor Room get what they need so that they can formalize their application with the state.
I think that's all our questions. Thank you, Natasha, for doing this on such short notice.
Oh, no problem.
Thank you for your volunteer service.
Yes.
Oh, it's going to get duller, I promise.
Says you. Says you.
Jill Kaufman from the NEPM News Department, you did reach out to Eric Schur to try to get a quote, and
I did. Just in the last couple of hours, I texted him, I called, I left a message at his realty office. No word back from him. I just want to say about, we can get wicked excited about the music and the business models and what you both know about, bars and entertainment venues in downtown Northampton. You've both been a part of this. But the mission of the commission, as Natasha pointed out last night in that meeting, is about providing opportunities with these liquor licenses. And so they really try to step out of any of the, I wouldn't call it even politics because it's not quite that, but any of the nuance that we think about with business owners, with Eric Schur, who has a long history in Northampton as a major real estate owner. So they step back, they look for economic development, and that is the spirit in which they granted how do you want to describe it now? Parlor Room / Iron Horse.
Parlor Room doing business as.
DBA.
Issued that license.
DBA, yeah. We did get an email from Chris Freeman, who's the executive director of the Parlor Room DBA, the Iron Horse. While we are happy with the Liquor Commission's ruling to grant us one of the additional licenses, there's no real change operationally for us. We are very likely to have it all sorted out and ready to go by our May opening. We are working to renegotiate the deal with Mr. Schur and just take the license out of it since the transfer never happened.
And we do hope to talk to Chris Freeman on the show tomorrow. Thank you so much, Jill Kaufman, for covering this story.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Later in the show, we'll chat with Zul Manzi about his animated series, The Matumblas, which has started airing its second season and is getting a screening tomorrow at Westfield State University.
Up next, it's word nerd Emily Brewster, and that's IT''S. Or is it?
A catastrophe of apostrophes, and the history thereof awaits.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM. Emily Brewster, resident wordster from Merriam-Webster. People who are word nerds often get frustrated with what some may perceive as the misuse of apostrophes.
There actually was some talk about this at the Daniel Shays talk at the Armory,
right,
which I went to.
It's Shays, Shays.
But the convention at the time was SHAYS apostrophe S, which is why the title of his book is Shays Rebellion spelled that way.
Yeah, Daniel Shays's
Shays's.
Honorable Rebellion.
But Shays's is what you long on the chaise long.
On the chaise long, on the chaise long, on the chaise long, all day long, on the chaise long.
All day long.
long.
All day long. So talk to us about apostrophes, Emily Brewster.
Well, they are a bit of a conundrum sometimes, certainly, as Khalees has just mentioned. They change, or they have changed over the history of their use. Now, before they were a punctuation mark, an apostrophe was something else. You all know what the rhetorical apostrophe is?
Like for a contraction, or?
No, the apostrophe in literature. So a literary apostrophe is when you address a person who is not present, or you address a personified thing.
Okay.
Like the Hamlet's speech to poor Yorick is a very famous example of an apostrophe.
Wow, I thought it was a skull.
No, that's Yorick.
Well, yeah, Yorick was certainly reduced. Parts of him were removed. And actually, the apostrophe mark, of course, they're the same words. They come from this idea. The Greek word apostrophe literally means the act of turning away.
Like an apostate. Maybe?
No, an apostate is someone who defects or who doesn't obey anymore, who refuses, who turns away, right? It does make sense etymologically. But that comes from a Greek word meaning rebel against God.
Whoa.
Wow, all right.
Yeah. Back to the punctuation mark.
Back to the punctuation mark. Thank you.
Out of this thorny territory.
So the apostrophe did this one thing in rhetoric and in literature, right? And had this job, these conversations you would have with somebody who wasn't there. And then in the early 1600s, this is when the printing was just really getting going. And there was a French printer named Geoffroy, I don't know how you'd say his name. It's Geoffroy. And who knows how you pronounce that in French in the early 16th century. So he was printing an Italian edition of Petrarch, and he used the apostrophe in it. He invented the apostrophe. He also invented the accent mark and the sedia, that pretty little tail on some C's.
Oh, nice. Well, so what did Joffrey or whatever use the apostrophe for in that particular printing?
It was only for elision. It was to show that a letter had been removed. We still see this in old texts, certainly in Shakespeare, where especially the first letters that were removed in this way and replaced this way were letters that weren't pronounced. So the ED, when it is not pronounced, the past tense marking ED would be reduced just to an apostrophe D to show that the E is not pronounced. We've stopped doing that because these things come and go. They're just conventions and people adopt them and then they reject them. But there are a few words where this same sort of thing happens. Like you think about the way we spell rock and roll. Right. It's got the two apostrophes that show that elision of a letter.
Around the N.
Yeah.
To take away the A and the D.
Around the N. There's also the very charming and underused, but for good reason, word forecastle. Do you know this word?
No.
FO''SLE. And it always comes up whenever people are writing about apostrophes or talking about the nitty-gritty details of apostrophe, because it is such an absurd looking word. It means forecastle. And nobody talks about forecastles anymore either.
Is it chess?
Isn't that the just outer keeps?
It's two different parts. It refers to two different parts of a boat. It's the forward part of the upper deck of a ship. Sorry, you're not supposed to say boat, you're supposed to say ship. And then cruise quarters in the bow of a ship, so not on the surface, can also be called the forecastle or the forecastle.
I didn't even know boats had castles.
Yeah.
Ships do, boats don't. That's why it's important to keep the distinction.
Good answer. The funny thing about the word forecastle is that it's actually its primary pronunciation. Its most accepted pronunciation is also forecastle.
So the elision also changed the pronunciation, although that happens in rock and roll too. We don't say rock and also roll.
Right.
We say rock and roll.
The elision reflected the pronunciation.
Yeah.
Right. So people weren't saying forecastle, they were saying forecastle. And then they started spelling it in a way that reflected that pronunciation.
Got it.
But none of those things are really the primary thing that an apostrophe does now, right? The apostrophe hardly does any of that job anymore. Now it does two different things. And the next thing it started to do was to be used to show the genitive or the possessive role of a noun.
Right.
Right.
And this also has a kind of strange story to it, because why would it start doing that now? Why would you go from saying like forecastle to using it for like, this is the king's book? The reason is that in Old English, it was very common to add es to a singular masculine or neuter noun when you wanted to show possession. So the word king at that time was spelled Cyning, and you would make it Cyninges. So that was how the word kings was spelled.
And it didn't mean more than one king. It meant belonging to the king.
That's right.
How many hours do you want?
Then they started using the apostrophe to just show that the E was missing. And there you have it. The apostrophe still doing the job of showing elision, but also doing the job of showing possession.
So the possessive apostrophe is really there taking the place of an E this whole time.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's neat. So it's kind of doing its very first job.
Right. But we don't think of it as doing it that at all. Even after this was a habit that some people were habitually using, it was not used with any kind of regularity. Things were just all over the place in English at this time. Probably because, a lot of people didn't have access to books, and it's not like you could check, there was no style guide. You couldn't Google, what's the right way to style this sentence?
You couldn't Google anything.
No. You also couldn't look it up in a book of style or something like that. And so writers just did what they wanted, and writers themselves were often incredibly inconsistent. Like Benjamin Franklin was throwing in apostrophes and then leaving them out in the same text. Also, Jane Austen and Thomas Jefferson did this too. They would put apostrophes in places seemingly on a whim because it wasn't consistent with the elision, and it also wasn't consistent necessarily with the possession.
So now if you lament the front page of the Daily Hampshire Gazette making some mistakes once in a while, remember that these icons of the English language in early U.S. history also desperately needed an editor.
Like they showed up at the punctuation buffet and just filled up their plates.
Yeah.
And sometimes they took a little bit more than they needed.
Yeah, but we can't talk about apostrophes without talking about its and its.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Who among us has not, even if you know how to use them, right?
Yep.
People who live in glass houses, HOUSE''S.
Every time I use it, it's like words that you look at and you're not sure how to spell it, even though you spelled it a million times.
Yeah.
Every time I use it, I'm like, wait a minute, is this possessive or is it is? Which one am I actually using?
And was it ever both?
Well, yeah, it's flip-flopped.
Yeah, see? So stop being so judgmental, everybody, when you see this. But again, you can watch your own. Currently, the best practice is what, Emily Brewster, with it?
Well, best practice right now is to use the apostrophe only with the contraction. So to mean it is or it has. And in all other cases, to use ITS. That's the convention. But here's the deal. There's an interesting history behind it. English used to have not only these other inflections, but it also used to have genders in the way that that German certainly has, and that all the Romance languages have. Many other languages have genders also. And the gender of a pronoun was determined by the gender of the noun that it referred to. So we had the neuter pronoun it, but its possessive pronoun was his.
Oh, okay.
And using a real example from a poem from back then, you were talking about April with his sweet showers would mean April with its sweet showers, like April's sweet showers. Then people began to link his and her only to actual males and females. This is like a time of shift during the language, and we were really losing the grammatical gender of our words. And they started replacing that his, which was the possessive pronoun for the neuter noun, with it. And so the next way that this would be phrased was April with it, sweet showers.
Not its.
Not its.
Uh-huh.
But then, just a few years later, around 1600, its with an apostrophe started to be used, because the apostrophe at that point was doing what we talked about just a minute ago, where the E was added and then the apostrophe took the place of the E. So then you had April with its IT apostrophe S showers.
So this is when it's being used as possessive with the apostrophe.
Yeah.
1600. right?
Yeah.
Okay.
1600. Yep. And then it stayed that way throughout the 17th century. And the version without the apostrophe only became dominant in the 18th century. And that is likely because of another shift. The word tis, apostrophe TIS, like meaning it is, it was being replaced with IT apostrophe S. It's.
So when we stopped using tis, we moved the apostrophe and rearranged the letters and started saying it's IT apostrophe S for it is, which is now the most common practice, but not the only right way forever.
Right. And then we said, no, you can't do that to the possessive it's, because you're like, oh, no, this is the contraction now. I mean, not all of us universally, right? There was people were not happy about this. People ignored it. People did whatever they wanted. But really because of mass production of media, then there became these standards. And so then there's a real convention that is visible, that is apparent to people. And so they started following it. There's also been, for a long time, an argument that we should just do away with apostrophes entirely. George Bernard Shaw hated apostrophes. He did not put them in Pygmalion or any of his other plays. He just thought they were stupid. I don't know. If you see the word shouldn't without the apostrophe, you're going to know what it says.
Right. Do you use apostrophes when you're texting? I do.
Oh.
Yeah, I do.
Sometimes it auto-completes that way. But I go out of my way to use punctuation. I still put periods in my text. I'm an old man.
Autocomplete and autocorrect are the bane of my existence.
Yeah. It won't ever let me swear. I know there's a function that I can do on my phone that'll make it easier, but it's always trying to autocorrect me to duck. That's not what I meant to say, phone.
Mine lets me. The other things that it thinks I'm saying most of the time are just very wrong.
Emily Brewster, resident wordster from Merriam-Webster. I try not to be judgmental, but one of my pet peeves is when it says, like, Merry Christmas from the Belmontes. No apostrophe S. It's just plural. Belmonte with an S.
Yes.
Did we lose you, Emily Brewster?
No,
okay.
That's right.
Were you upset that I didn't send you a Christmas card this year? Don't worry, I didn't send anybody a Christmas card this year.
Well, I do always look forward to your Christmas cards. So,
my kids didn't want to do it anymore. There's a lot of fun ones in the past, but I think that era is over.
I mean, you still have one child who will probably participate.
Yeah.
It's a matter of getting them all together. And now it's going to be harder because one of them's in college and moving on with their life.
Yep. Anyway, but yes, back to the point. No apostrophe S if you're just saying not one singular Belmonte. Multiple Belmontes are conveying an image. As opposed to welcome to the Belmonte's house, which then could be Belmonte apostrophe S or Belmonte's S apostrophe, right? Because plural possessive could go either way.
That's right. Does the house belong to just one of them or to all of them?
Well, it belongs to two of us. Let's just say that. The rest of them, you got to wait till we're dead.
Whoa! Whoa, that's a take!
We just did our will over the weekend. Thanks to Free Will, which was being promoted by NEPM back last year during the fund drive. Maybe we'll team up with them again.
All right, so the sign should really say, welcome to, in parentheses, two of the Belmontes apostrophe S.
Or S apostrophe because it's still plural, right? Oh, my God.
Two of the...
Oh, right. No. Right. Two of the Belmontes, plural with the apostrophe after the S.
Yeah.
Yes.
My real name is Christopher or Chris. And so Chris's was always really complicated.
Yeah, so is Khalees.
Yeah, Khalees's.
Yeah. So what do you two do?
Just apostrophe at the end.
I just say Monty's now. It's way easier.
I mean... Yes, but I don't have that alternative. I'm not known by other things.
We'll give you a new nickname, Smitty.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Oh, no, we can't be doing that,
All
no.
right, okay.
No.
Smitty's.
Oh, God. I hate it so much.
Things to keep in mind about the apostrophe, Emily Brewster, would be current best practice, especially with its, IT apostrophe S for it is, and ITS for possessive it.
And that their sizes run very small.
But
wait, that's aeropostale.
Oh, yeah. But don't judge yourself or others too harshly because it hasn't always been this way.
Right. And if you really hate apostrophes, just don't use them.
And if you have a question or suggestion for what you want to hear us talk about on this Word Nerd segment, you can always send your suggestions to us at thefab413@nepm.org. We put an apostrophe after the fab to get rid of the ulus of fabulous. No, we don't. So don't put that in the...
Because
then the email won't come to us.
Yeah, no. Up next, Springfield Zulmanzi, the creative force behind the animated series The Matumbalas, which is getting a screening at Westfield State University tomorrow.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Northeast Solar, homegrown in Hatfield, Massachusetts, and providing energy savings for their customers for over 10 years. Learn more at northeast-solar.com.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. I'm Monty Belmonte.
And I'm Khalees Smith. The Matumbalas is about a Tanzanian family living in middle-class America. The series deals with culture clashes between the immigrated parents and their first-generation American children.
Meet The Matumbalas, a new comedy about a Tanzanian family living in America. Hashim, the father.
See, look at me. My name is Hashim, but they call me Hash Browns. It doesn't bother me.
Meet Zainat, the mother.
Fatima, are you really sure Latifa got a divorce?
Mom!
1 hour after she got married?
Meet Amina, the eldest sibling.
Hajj is a religious experience, not chicken breast.
Rajab, the middle sibling.
If only your parents didn't get those green cards. If only.
And Zulfika, the youngest.
I'm so hungry, I feel like I'm fasting for Ramadan again.
The Matumbalas animated series was created by Zul Manzi, a young content creator born and raised right here in Springfield, Massachusetts. While attending Longmeadow High School, Zul began to have an interest in television production and stand-up comedy.
After graduating from high school in 2016, he attended STIC, STCC, and majored in digital media production to expand his knowledge in TV production. While attending college, Zul developed his production company, Z Master Productions.
In 2017, Zul was awarded first place in Alliance for Community Media Awards for his self-produced sketch comedy series. In 2018, he was awarded the Service Award in Digital Media Production after graduating from STIC.
And in 2019, Zul began production with his animated series, The Matumbalas, by gleaning material from his stand-up comedy sets. He gained inspiration for The Matumbalas from his Tanzanian community in New England, his family, and real-life experiences in public school. There will be a screening of The Matumbalas at Westfield State tomorrow. Welcome. Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much. A pleasure to being here. I'm really excited.
Yeah. So this is a situation where the comedy and stand-up came first, and then you decided you wanted to turn it into an animated version of it? Is that kind of what happened, or?
Yeah, pretty much. So, going into the stand-up comedy realm in 2019, just pretty much kind of going into it, every comedian says, everyone's doing an impression of their favorite comedian. So I was just trying to find something that aligned with me personally. So growing up, my favorite comedians always spoke about their own self and their own life and their family. So I'm like, hey, if Ray Romano talks about being Italian and Larry David talks about being Jewish, I'm Tanzanian. So this is going to be a lane I'm going to use. So I pretty much use that as my catalyst and use that to pretty much build the series.
How many of your family members have witnessed the animated version of Your Family, and what's their take on the
Yeah,
animation?
pretty much all of them.
So they're all still around?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
good,
They're pretty much especially in Tanzania. So my family, I have an uncle Rashid. I hope he's listening. He calls me. There's an 8-hour time difference. So he calls me, and most of my family in Tanzania don't speak English. However, they understand the humor because in the show we mix Swahili and English into it. So he goes, Zulfika, Matumbalas, very nice. Okay, bye. So I do get the love, and the show itself, the title Matumbalas, is derivative from my actual tribe name.
Oh, cool.
The tribe name is Mtumbala, and I pretty much modified it to be Matumbala. And the irony of the previous segment about apostrophes, I made a mistake with the spelling. I put Matumbalas, but I put apostrophe S. And then going to this next season, I was like, wait a minute, I messed up on my grammar. So I took out the apostrophe to make it more
I was not going to judge you on that. That was the whole point of that last segment.
The irony being that you could have kept the apostrophe, you just needed to move it closer to the M, and it would be dead on.
Yeah, because you abbreviated the name. That's amazing.
Right.
Do your family members who have seen it see themselves in the characters that are on screen? Are they like, you took that from that conversation we had the other day? How dare you? Or
you owe me royalties now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, right? Like that's why I kind of been ducking a little bit too, because might get some residual checks, out of this production. He's like, nah, you guys are not in the writers' room.
It's like, no, this is recompense for all that trauma.
Honestly. I've, like with my family, and also I got a community here, Tanzanian community growing up here in Western Mass. And there are times when people will like notice like, hey, this kind of reminds me of my uncle, or hey, is this me? And I will never answer like exactly who. So what I'd say is it's a character smoothie. It's like 3 characters blended into one to form one individual. But I'm also a pest, so it's like there's certain things that are very, very instinctive that happen in real life, and it's like, oh yeah, this happened at a party that we went to when we were 8.
One of the things that happens in the episodes that we've seen, which is fun and really funny, are the interactions that you have with a name like Zulmanzi and Matumbala in school. In school here, ostensibly in Western Massachusetts. Let's play a clip, and given that we were talking about mixing up names and saying names incorrectly, from Matumbala's right here.
Jack? Jack?
I'm here, Mrs. McCrust. I am here. I am here. I am here.
Okay, Jack. I can see you. I can see you. I am not blind yet. All right. Emily?
Here.
Okay. Oh, this is gonna be a tough one. I can't do this today. I can't do it. Okay, I'll try to sound it out.
I'm here. I'm here. I am here.
Sorry, can you pronounce your name again?
Mrs. McCrust, this is the 100th day of school. My name is Zulfika.
Well, good morning, Zabumafu.
That seems all too real.
I relate to that so hard, and I'm not from Tanzania.
Yeah, no, it really, like, that honestly happened, like, in middle school. My teacher, whose name is close to Mrs. McCrust, I just changed the spelling a little bit. I hope she's still alive. But, yeah,
and I hope she's listening to 8 p.m. this afternoon.
Yeah, I hope so, yeah, because she was pretty old. That's like, she woke up from her grave listening to that. She, every time in school, just reading my name and just kind of like, Bomofo, and it's just like, come on, like, it's Zulfika, and this will have to be a repetitive thing over and over again. So, I just kind of played around with it. It was like, yeah, Zabumofu, yeah, that's the name of my tribe. So, and she would go like, oh, that's great. Okay, anyways, Margaret? And it's like, all right, can never win.
We're speaking with Zulmanzi, who has a season 2 of the Matumbalas, which will tell you where you can watch it, and we will tell you that there will be a screening tomorrow at Westfield State University. More with Zulmanzi coming up.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NAPM.
The government wants you to think that white will make you feel fresh. Can't say white.
You know when I'm listening to Lil Young, I'm getting my inner Shakira's aligned.
But Mom, my egg Mzingi needs protection. Mzingi.
There will come a time when your mother and I will get old. You may have to change my diapers from time to time.
Are we an investment?
Don't talk about my investments.
That is from the Matumbalas, an animated series on Kweli TV. And to be screened tomorrow at Westfield University, we are here with the creator of the Matumbalas, Zulmanzi from Springfield.
Yeah.
Why do it as an animated series, and how did you get to the style of animation that you're using?
Absolutely. So originally, I did wanted to do as a live, action series, and I was to a point where I was like, okay, it's starting to get a little difficult trying to grab a lot of actors together and production costs and everything. So as a kid, I always had interest in animation. So I used to make cartoons on Microsoft Paint and Windows Movie Maker, and and kind of like make the slideshows like 0.28 seconds so that the characters can just do a little shaky hand wave and things. So I've always been into animation, and so going into this project, I just decided to, take classes. So when I was at Stick, I took an Adobe Photoshop class. And then when I graduated, I decided, no, I'm going to go ahead and continue to build up on that and learn Adobe Illustrator and then Adobe Character Animator. And then from there, this kind of helped me to pretty much be a little more self-sufficient to produce a series in a 2D animation style. And then going to season 2, I wanted to kind of expand the world a little bit. And I had a stand-up comedian based in CT named Dan Brown to do the backgrounds on Blender. So it's pretty much been like a two-man band behind the animation game.
Nice. And you're doing a showing at Westfield State, but this is the second in a series of showings that you're going to be doing. The first one was at Drexel University. How did it go?
Yeah, it went well. I went down there with co-writer and lead actor Chris Yates, who's also Springfield native as well.
Nice.
We started the series together a few years ago. So we went down to Drexel, and it was with the African Student Association at Drexel. So it was really reassuring to see like the students from the different perspectives. So since the series is a Tanzanian family, but the students there, they're from Ethiopia, Nigeria, or Sierra Leone, but they all related to the series. And so at the end, they all recorded a video speaking about how the show related to them growing up in an African household, the storylines, and that it was funny. So it was a good win. So it felt good to know like, you're thinking like you're the only one that experiences things, but when you step out in the world and people say, hey, no, I went through that same thing, or hey, I got a cheap uncle too, or my mom loves to gossip. So I was like, oh, we all one big joppy family.
And this is not where the tour ends either. It's going to Columbia, Syracuse, New York Film Academy, Rutgers, St. John's, and on the agenda is Pixar Studios. That's kind of amazing. It's the premier animation studio going right now, basically.
Yeah.
Unless you're Hayao Miyazaki, maybe.
Absolutely, yeah. Now, the Pixar, shout out to Theo. He also is a filmmaker on Quelly TV. It was very much a left field moment because he works there at Pixar, and they're doing a Black History Month screening out there on February 19th. And he also has a project on Quelly TV called Sirius Lee, and we met in Austin, Texas for Afrotech, us as Quelly filmmakers. So he was like, yeah, I want to do a screening and have the Matumblas to be part of our Black History Month screening event at Pixar. And it's such a full circle moment because as a kid, I was so obsessed with Toy Story, particularly Woody. I had 5 Woody toys. I had the no string, the string, the glass one, and to the point like I buried one of my Woody toys in the backyard when I was 7. And so it really is a full circle moment for me because, even my aunt reminded me when I was a kid, I used to like bring Woody to the car. And then I used to like put Woody on a seatbelt so that while we were driving, he's protected by the law. So
yeah,
so
it didn't say good. Andy on the bottom of that Woody's shoe.
Yeah,
it said Zool.
It said Zool. Yeah, like put like a masking tape on it, and just put my own name on it with the Sharpie.
And it's worth noting we've been talking about Quelly TV. It's a mission-driven mass media entertainment company that celebrates global Black stories and amplifies Black creators. And you can check out the Matumbalas at Quelly.tv. Season 1 and 2 is there now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Both seasons streaming on there. We're the first ever original series on Quelly TV.
Oh, wow. That's really cool.
How did that happen really quickly?
Yeah, so when I worked on season 1, it was just pretty much out of the whim. It was on YouTube. And then I was already a subscriber on Quelly. And I submitted it on there. And then this was like October 2020. And then that November, on Thanksgiving, they said, hey, we like it. And then once it started to stream on there, like in 2 weeks, it cracked the top 10 most watched list. And then in 2021, it became the #1 most watched show on the platform out of all genres, all titles. So based off of that metric, Quelly said, hey, we're looking to go into the original series run. We would like the Matumblas to go into this endeavor. So I said, all right, bet. So once we got into it, I literally lost my mind because this was my first time having a budget, a deadline. I was like, I only went to community college, so I won't have to have deadlines and go feel like I'm in school again. So going to this, I had to get all the new team together, have the old team together too, and made it happen.
Right on.
I love that. We shout out to Jill Kaufman, who was with us earlier in the show from the NPM News Department, who did a feature story about the first season about this with you, Zul Manzi from Springfield. And a shout out to our friend Ange Buxton, who's one of the voices of the students in the classroom there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she voiced the character Emily in the very first episode. I was just like, hey, I'm gonna need some voiceovers.
It can't all be me.
Yeah, no, right?
That's a lot. That's a lot of speaking to do.
So if we want to see this tomorrow, Westfield State, where do we go? What do we do? Is it free?
Yeah, it's for free. Pretty much, it's at the it's going to be at the University Hall on campus over there. And so yeah, it's a free screening, open to the public. So the screening time is going to be from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. So we're going to be screening 2 episodes from season 2, and then afterwards I'm going to be speaking as well with the students. And the speaking engagement is pretty much about how community shapes our stories. And then afterwards a Q&A with all the attendees there, and yeah, getting the ball rolling after that.
Right on.
Zul Manzi from Springfield, the creator of the animated series The Matumbalas. Will you come back when you win your first Emmy?
Yeah, I'll be back, and I'll make sure to wear a mask, just in case I don't bump into like old family members here and saying like, you used me in your show, or you're not bringing it to the Emmys, and it's like, guys, I'm sorry.
Also, those tickets are expensive. Like, come on, y'all.
It's still a fun experience, I'm sure.
Yeah. I hope they have EBT cards.
Yeah. Well, thank you again. Tomorrow on the Fabulous 413, we're getting a new show sibling. You might have heard about NEPM's new show, The Rundown, which begins Friday and will be a weekly recap of the news in Western Mass.
But we'll give you an opportunity to meet its new host, Carrie Saldo, before she's way too cool to hang out with us.
Plus, winter board games with Justin Dowd of Start Playing Games. Looks like we're going to have Chris Freeman on from the Parlor Room as well.
We will, and you can play games tonight with us at the Brass Cat if you wanna. And our weekly chat with Rep. Jim McGovern. Email us at thefab413@nepm.org if you want ask him a question.
I'm Monty Belmonte.
I'm Khalees Smith. We'll see you tomorrow on the Fabulous 413.